Hi, this is Zach Parry. This is the first video I'm doing. I want to introduce myself a little bit. If you found this page, hopefully it means you've read my book. Hopefully you liked it, you learned something from it. I want to create a series of videos kind of bringing some of my book to life so you can interact with me. I can give you some examples, but I want to introduce myself first. I want to give you an idea of who I am, how I came to be here, because I was not always in this industry. In fact, when I went to law school, now I graduated law school in 2009, so it's been over 10 years. When I went to law school, my focus always was on trials. Like, I went to law school because I wanted to be a trial lawyer. In fact, when you think of a lawyer, that's probably what you think of. Because on TV, whenever they do TV shows about lawyers and whatnot, they're doing the litigators, they're doing the criminal attorneys, they're doing the trial lawyers, the ones who are in front of a jury, in front of a judge, making persuasive arguments. There are a lot of other types of attorneys, but that's the type I wanted to be. I wanted to feel that thrill of, trying to convince someone that my way was the best way, and use logic and rip apart other arguments, and that gave me kind of a thrill. And so I took every class in law school I could that was related to that. I was in 2 clinics, a civil litigation clinic where I did divorces. I did the federal civil rights clinic where I represented prisoners in federal prison who believed they had been mistreated in some way. I did mock trial, which was an appellate kind of, an appeals court competition. I participated in the trial court. I participated in mock trial. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't need to give you a list of my transcript, but I took every course I could that would teach me and allow me to practice trial techniques, learn the rules of evidence, the objections, all that kind of stuff. Then when I went out into the legal field, I was lucky and blessed enough to go into a firm where they let me get my feet wet right away. They gave me my cases. I was doing the heavy hitting on those cases. And so I very quickly developed a talent and a love for being able to do this. I did many trials. I did bench trials. I did jury trials. I did evidentiary hearings, which are like trials. I did some appeals. I did all sorts of stuff, taking depositions, everything that my heart ever wanted. And as much of a thrill as it was, and it really was, and as much fun as it was, what I wasn't counting on was how much that weighed on me, how stressful it was. Not only because the stakes are pretty high in these cases, right? You're talking about, I didn't do criminal, I did civil law, so it's not like someone's life or freedom was on the balance, but someone's livelihood often was on the balance, someone's health. So it was still significant, and what I did had a very real impact on the lives of my clients. I was very successful, and for the most part, I did really, really good, and the clients were really, really happy. But getting there just weighed on me because I would lose sleep, and I'd be thinking about, the consequences if things don't go well. And so anyway, it was stressful in that aspect. And I'll let you in on a little secret. If you're not in the legal industry and you're not dealing with attorneys every day, particularly litigators, you may not know this, and this may surprise you, but here's the secret. Attorneys are babies. That's the truth of it. Attorneys, by and large, are a bunch of babies. We're poor losers. We're chest beaters, attacking personalities, attacking strategies. It is an adversarial system. There's constantly continuing education about how attorneys need to respect each other, and there's no need to be confrontational, but that's just because it is. And so when attorneys perceive that they're losing, or they perceive that you're a threat, they'll use underhanded tactics. It's terrible. So I'd have attorneys yelling at me, screaming at me. I'd be winning the case. I would have made an argument that won the day at a hearing, and they just yell at me, scream at me, and it's really hard to just let that, bounce off. It really is, and it starts to weigh on you. Well, I want to tell you about one story in particular. This wasn't an attorney. This was actually an unrepresented fellow. Okay, his name was Robert Lauer. I'm telling you his name because I want you to know his name, because his name should go down in infamy. And I'm familiar with defamation law, so I don't take this lightly. I know exactly what I'm doing when I tell you Robert Lauer's name, okay? But here's what happened. I didn't get involved until somewhat later in the process, but Robert Lauer, he wanted to purchase a house from the person who would eventually become my client. And so he went and he said, I'd like to purchase a house. Well, what Robert didn't know at the time was that the person was only selling the house because he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. So this person was like, I'm going to get out of Vegas. I'm going to move back to Georgia where my family lives. And let me unload this house. And so they were in negotiations to sell it. The problem was, this was back in a time when a lot of houses were upside down. So Robert Lauer was negotiating the purchase of this house, and this guy with the terminal illness, we'll call him John. Okay, so John just wanted to offload it. He was upside down. He was okay selling it for less than what it was worth, as long as the bank signed off on it, so he wouldn't owe anything. It's called a short sale. And so they came up with an agreement. Robert offered to purchase it for a certain amount. They understood they had to get bank approval for the loan. And so they signed an agreement that basically said, hey, Robert agreed to purchase it for X amount of money, assuming the bank signed off on it. And in the meantime, Robert would pay John $1,000 a month in rent. And then once it got approved, he'd stop paying rent, they'd fund the house, and be done. Well, so the first month or two, Robert paid $1,000 rent. What happened was the bank rejected the terms of the short sale. So it never went through. Robert never purchased the house. John never sold the house. And John, who is literally on his deathbed, he just kind of forgets about it. Robert doesn't pay rent. He just lives in this house. Well, 2 years go by. Now, John thinks he's going to die within 6 months. He gets a new diagnosis. Turns out they were wrong. He doesn't just have months to live. So he's like, wait a minute, I'm going to get my affairs in order. I'm going to live my life. He moves back to Vegas. He's like, I got to get this house in order. He hadn't paid the mortgage on it. He hadn't received rent. He didn't really care. He thought he was going to die. So he contacts Robert and he says, hey, Robert, I need you to start paying rent, or I need you to get out, because I can't just, they're going to foreclose on this house and I want to salvage it. And Robert says, no, this is my house. Remember, we have this contract. You agreed that you would sell it to me. John says, yeah, but it was conditional upon bank approval. We didn't get bank approval, and you never paid me for the house. In fact, you got your earnest money deposit back, so it's not your house. So Robert, who's been living for free in this house for almost 2 years, says, well, you're going to have to evict me because I'm not moving out. So John goes to the eviction court, and he gets the eviction papers ready, and comes time for the eviction hearing, and Robert shows up with a lawsuit against John. And he says, Judge, I have sued John for fraud. This is my house. He cannot evict me from it. And the judge had no choice but to not evict until the fraud lawsuit had been taken care of. And so that's when John comes to me. So John comes to me. We're in this situation where he can't evict the guy, but he's not paying rent. John's not making any money on the house. In the meantime, the bank is threatening to foreclose. And so we go into the court and basically explain to the court that Robert was full of it. We show them the contract. We show that their earnest money was refunded. We show that there's no right in ownership to the house. We show chain of title. It never transferred, everything. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And because it was so ridiculous, we asked the judge for attorney's fees. So we got an order from the judge that the $5,000 in attorney's fees be paid to my client, because that's what it cost to get this far, plus $277 in costs. So over $5,000 accruing interest. So we got this judgment against Robert Lauer. So we win. So now John goes back to the eviction court. Now that this has been taken care of, he goes to evict Robert, and Robert is at it again, and he accuses John of breaking into the house and stealing from him. Again, these trumped up, fake, ridiculous charges. So John once again gets me involved. I go to the eviction court, and we get another amount of fees. Second attorney fee award, because it's ridiculous. Well, believe it or not, we got a third attorney's fee award against Robert, because he tried to undo his case being thrown out. He accused me of being unethical. The judge wasn't having anything of it. In fact, he filed a bar complaint against me, and which just got thrown out summarily because he's just making stuff up. Anyway, so we get 3 attorney's fees awards against him in a period of weeks. And this guy just can't win against us in court, which, it's going to be a pattern when you make stuff up. You're not going to win, hopefully. And so we get here's a total of $6,260 from one court, $750 from the other, plus $1,000, 3 attorney's fees. So we have choices now. We can either collect against this guy, you know, try and foreclose on his house, whatnot, his other real estate. He did get evicted. But we decided we're just going to, he owned a number of houses. We placed a lien against it, and then we just let it sit. Well, in the meantime, this guy creates a website dedicated to defaming me. It's PickardParryLaw.com. My website at the time was PickardParry.com. He sets up this website, PickardParryLaw.com. You can see it here, where it's actually kind of funny. At the time, it wasn't funny. When I first saw it, I was frustrated. It says, "Are Zachariah Parry's billing practices ethical? Can you trust these guys about as much as a used car salesman from New Jersey? These guys are all about the money. After seeing firsthand how Zach treated me, I would never recommend him or his firm." So he wanted this to look like this was our firm website. Crazy. This is some of my favorite parts. How can we screw you today? Got a picture of a thief. Zach has successfully caught several ambulances and shaken lots of money from hardworking people over the years. Zach got his degree from Guatemala Inmates Direct Mail Online Law School. I actually couldn't get into that school, so that's actually an extra burn. I'm still sensitive about that. And in his free time, Zach enjoys pickpocketing homeless vets. For real? I mean, seriously though, if I were going to pickpocket someone, it wouldn't be homeless people. I don't know. I'm not going to pickpocket people, but that's the kind of stuff he puts on there. And so what happened is he has this website, and I'm very frustrated. Like, it just doesn't feel right when someone is lying about you, and it's public and it's online. And I'd been through this once before. I had to sue the lady to get her to take it down because that was actually affecting my business. And interestingly enough, she was the opposing party too. So I kept beating people in court, and then they would be frustrated and they'd take it out online and pretend like they were my client and unhappy, when in reality, there couldn't be anything further from the truth. So I didn't want to go through a lawsuit again. This wasn't really affecting things. I mean, it's not like he was optimizing his site. People weren't finding it. I was lucky that I stumbled upon it. And so instead, I decided I was going to try and capitalize on this, and so I started promoting it. So I would share this. I was like, look what the opposing party is doing. This is how successful we are. So I created a website, actually, or a page on my website called Opposing Party Testimonials, where I started collecting the things people were saying about me, the opposing parties, collecting the things that the negative things that they were saying, so people could read, you know, what all these negative things about me from people I had beaten. The story doesn't end there, because what happened was Robert, after a couple of years, we just let that judgment sit. And after a couple of years, he wanted to sell his house. Well, we effectively had a lien on his house. Well, I mean, we had a lien. It was a judgment lien. We had a lien on this house that he wanted to sell. Not the one that he got evicted from, but some other property. And so he wanted that lien removed because he couldn't refinance or sell or whatever he was trying to do while it was on there. So he calls me out of the blue 2 years later. "Hey, Zach, this is Robert Lauer. I don't know if you remember me." And I'm thinking, yeah, I remember you. He's like, "Hey, I know you have this $6,000 plus lien on my house. I'm willing to pay $2,500 to get it removed because I'd like to sell the house." I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, you got to pay the full amount." He's like, "Well, no, the most I can go is $3,000. I said, "Well, the least I will take is the full amount. Those are attorney's fees that my clients had to pay me that now you are going to pay them." "Well, no, blah, 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 blah." So he hangs up. So I talked to my clients, "Hey, just so you know," he called, he offered $2,500, he offered $3,000. You know, they didn't want anything less than a penny. And in reality, there was no chance we were going to get anything less than that unless he didn't have $6,000 equity in a house he'd owned for 2 years, which we knew there was equity. So anyway, at the end of the day, he paid us, but not before I required him to apologize for the website. So he apologized. He wrote me a written apology. I still have it somewhere. It's a 2-word email. It says, "I'm sorry." And then he paid us the full amount of money. Anyway, so there was a happy ending in that story. Usually there are happy endings in these stories, but it just goes to illustrate just how stressful it was. People were attacking me personally, and it weighed on me. So all that is to say that I know that's a very long story, but really it was 10 years in the making, where I kind of stumbled on this insurance thing. And I'll be the first to tell you, like, I don't go around telling people that I'm a licensed insurance agent. I am, but that's not how I see myself, and that's not how I talk to others, because being a life insurance agent, that's not exactly sexy. I mean, in 3rd grade, when you're talking about career day, no one's saying, I want to grow up and be a life insurance agent. In fact, interestingly enough, and I think I have a slide for this. Let me see if I can find it. Congress has been, I do have a slide. We'll have to put it up later because it's on a different slideshow. But Congress, when they were talking about changing life insurance, the statute in the 80s, they wrote some things about life insurance agents, which just kind of shows what it means, what people's perception of life insurance agent is. So this is the congressional record leading up to the 1986 tax changes affecting life insurance. At a cocktail party, a stockbroker, upon revealing to a stranger his occupation, is plied with questions such as, what do you think the market's going to do? What's your opinion as to the viability of pork bellies as an alternative investment choice to Ted Turner Fifth Mortgage bonds? The life insurance agent, on the other hand, is greeted with responses such as, oh, I'm insurance poor. My brother-in-law is in the insurance business. I've got all the insurance I need. I've got to go now. It's been nice to meet you. Representative Stark stated in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, who do you know who likes a life insurance agent? Why? Not because they view life insurance agent as having industrial strength herpes, but because they view life insurance as a negative expense for protection rather than a positive investment for profit. So the congressional record recognized the negative rap that life insurance agents have. So no, it's not something I advertise. And the truth of the matter is what they say at the end is true. When you're selling death benefit, it's a negative expense for protection. And life insurance agents try and spin it. They try and say, I'm selling peace of mind. They try and make it positive, but that's not what we do here. We are actually focusing on the investment opportunities available because of the unique characteristics of cash value life insurance and the tax preferred status that they enjoy. So it actually is a positive investment for growth, right? You're not investing in life insurance, but you're using life insurance as a vehicle for investing elsewhere, for tax-free growth. So it is a positive thing. So I am an attorney, but now I do tax strategies, and no tax attorney, I sold my trial practice to focus on this full-time. A couple of years after I started this firm, sold the trial practice, focused on this one full-time, partnered up with an expert in taxes. Nick Fortune has his master's in tax from Stanford. He has a PhD in tax and accountancy from USC. He knows what he's doing, but no tax attorney can offer you a complete strategy or can really give you the best advice if they are not taking into account the huge tax preferred status and the huge tax advantages available through an investment grade insurance contract. So that's how I came to do what I came to do. Well, I've had the same conversation with clients over and over and over again about what they were taught and how, they tell me, why didn't anyone ever teach me this? I hired the professionals. I got a financial planner. I got a CPA. Why isn't anyone telling me these things in the same common sense way you are? Why wasn't I aware that 401k is a bad deal? Why is that everyone thinks that's a good deal, right? So I have these conversations all the time. That's why I decided to write the book. I wanted to put all these things that I'm constantly telling people and educating people. I wanted to put it in one place. I wanted to put my citations in there. I wanted to make sure anyone who had access to it they could check my sources. There's like 270 some footnotes in there to primary sources, to secondary sources, all sorts of different sources so you can check me. But I wanted to make this available to you. That's who I am. That's my story. That's how I got into what I'm doing. So if you are interested in talking to me about anything you read in the book, about any program, or if you just want someone to run an audit of what you're doing and see what potentially you could do better, please reach out to us. The website is ZachariahParry.com. Maybe you're even at the website now. There's contact information all over there. You reach out to us, and my promise to you is that when you call whoever you talk to, they'll put a smile on your face. If they don't, you let me know, because we take smiling pretty seriously around here.